Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to imagine, just for a second, you are running a pharmaceutical plant. You're responsible for making life-saving medicine. Maybe it's a cancer treatment, maybe a vaccine. The stakes literally couldn't be higher. But when you walk out onto the production floor, it feels like you've stepped into a time machine set for, I don't know, 1995.
Clipboards everywhere, stacks of paper batch records just towering on desks.
Exactly. You have these multi-million-dollar machines that are miracles of engineering, but they aren't talking to each other. They're isolated. And the processes, they're rigidly locked down because, well, the regulations say they have to be. It's a massive paradox. You've got high-tech chemistry managed by low-tech administration.
It's the classic industry struggle. I mean, you have this immense pressure to modernize and be efficient, but an equal or even greater pressure to change absolutely nothing, because change equals risk in the eyes of compliance.
Right. But then you get handed a blueprint, a literal mastermind plan that says it can transform that traditional paper-heavy plant into a connected, AI-enabled digital factory. And here's the kicker. It says you can design and roadmap this entire transformation in a sprint, just 12 to 16 weeks.
Which, in the pharma world, where validating a single spreadsheet can take 6 months, sounds almost impossibly fast.
That is exactly what we are diving into today. We have a stack of documents, curriculum modules, and templates from the Pharma Digital Factory Mastermind. It's a cohort-based leadership program designed specifically for site heads, for operations leaders, and the IT folks who are trying to drag their facilities into the 21st century.
And what I love about this source material is that it isn't just a brochure for buying new software. It attacks that central tension we just mentioned. How do you modernize an environment known for rigid compliance without breaking the rules and, without breaking the bank?
That's the mission. We're going to explore the core pillars this program lays out: the digital architecture, basically the plumbing of the factory, smart operations, and this really interesting concept of Pharma 4.0 quality.
And we absolutely cannot ignore the human element. The documents are surprisingly heavy on this. You can have the smartest robots in the world, but if your leadership and your workforce aren't ready, the whole thing just falls apart.
So let's jump in. The source material talks about a journey from islands to adaptability. It lays out a maturity model with 6 distinct stages. It kind of feels like a video game level-up system, but for manufacturing?
It effectively is. It's based on the Industry 4.0 Maturity Index, but it's tailored specifically for pharma. Most plants starting this program are sitting at, say, stage 1, or maybe 2. Stage 1 is computerization.
That's just using computers, right?
Ideally, yes.
Yeah.
But in a lot of plants, it's just moving from pen and paper to paper on glass. You're scanning a PDF. It's digital technically, but the data is dead. It's just an image. You can't analyze it.
Okay, so that's the basement level. Stage 2 is connectivity. This is where that term digital islands comes from.
This is where most of the industry is stuck. You might have a fancy filling machine, a labeling machine, and a bioreactor. They are all computerized. But the filling machine has no idea what the bioreactor is doing. The data is trapped inside the machine. Connectivity is about building the bridges so that data can flow from the shop floor to the server room.
I love that image of digital islands. Sounds nice like a vacation, but in a factory, it's a nightmare of inefficiency. So once you build the bridges and the machines are talking, you hit stage 3, visibility.
This is the what. What is happening right now? This is where you get your real-time dashboards. Instead of waiting for a shift report at the end of the day to find out production was down, you see your overall equipment effectiveness in real time.
Okay, pausing on OEE for a second because the text mentions it a dozen times. For those of us who don't live on a factory floor, what goes into that number?
It's the gold standard metric. It combines 3 things. Availability is the machine running. Performance, is it running at full speed? And quality, did it make good products? If you have visibility, you know your OEE score right now, this second.
But knowing what happened isn't the end game. Stage 4 is transparency.
Right. This is the shift from what to why. Why did the OEE drop? Why did the yield go down? Transparency uses advanced analytics to look at correlations. Maybe the yield dropped because the temperature spiked 3 hours ago during the mixing phase. Transparency connects those dots automatically.
As the computer starts acting like a detective.
Exactly. And then stage 5 is predictability. Now we're getting into the sci-fi stuff. We stop looking backward and start looking forward. Using AI and models to forecast failures before they happen. Predictive maintenance.
Machine's gonna break in 4 hours. Fix it now.
Precisely. And finally, the holy grail. Stage 6, adaptability.
What does a fully adaptable factory look like?
It's a self-optimizing plant. The system sees a temperature spike coming, and it doesn't just alert a human. It automatically adjusts the pressure or the flow rate to compensate, keeping the product within spec. The plant is reacting to changing conditions autonomously.
That is wild. It's like a factory has its own nervous system.
Yeah.
But getting there seems daunting. The Mastermind program apparently forces leaders to be brutally honest about where they are right now.
Yes, and that honesty is critical. The program includes a comprehensive assessment toolkit. They score you on a 1 to 5 scale across multiple dimensions, and they don't just look at technology. They assess process excellence, data management, infrastructure, but also, and this is key, culture and supply chain.
So you might be a level 4 on buying expensive servers,
Yeah.
but a level 1 on operators actually using them.
Exactly. And if you have that imbalance, you fail. The assessment gives you a baseline score. You have to know you are a pre-digital plant before you can map a path to being an adaptive one.
Okay, so we've taken the assessment. We know we are living on a digital island. We want to get to adaptability. The Mastermind lays out a 6-step roadmap.
Yeah.
Step 1 was assess. Step 2 is define vision and use cases.
And this is where the documents warn against a very specific trap: technology tourism.
I love that phrase. It sounds like executives going on a safari to look at robots.
That's basically what it is. Let's buy some VR headsets because they look cool in the annual report.
Yeah.
Mastermind says, STARP, you need to prioritize high-value use cases. Don't just do digital, solve a business problem.
The text highlights things like electronic batch records or EBR and predictive maintenance.
Wow.
Why is EBR such a big deal? Is it just saving paper?
It's about speed. It's about review by exception. In a paper world, a quality assurance person has to read every single line of a batch record, hundreds of pages to release the medicine. It takes days, sometimes weeks. With EBR, the system validates the data as it's entered. It only flags the errors. If everything is green, you can release the batch in hours.
That is massive for cash flow. You aren't just sitting on inventory.
Exactly. The vision isn't we want iPads. The vision is we want to reduce release time by 80%. The technology is just the tool to get there.
Okay, so we have a vision. Step 3 is design and governance. This sounds like the boring part, but reading through the source material, I get the sense this is actually the most important part.
It is the foundation. This is where you set up your architecture. The documents talk a lot about something called the Unified Namespace, or UNS.
You break that down. It sounds very technical.
It is technical, but think of it this way. In a traditional factory, the data structure is a pyramid. The machine talks to a controller, which talks to a system called SCADA, which talks to an MES, which talks to the ERP at headquarters. It's a game of telephone.
And if you want to change one thing, you have to reconfigure the whole chain.
Exactly. It's rigid and expensive.
Yeah.
The unified namespace changes the architecture to a town square. Every machine, every sensor, every software program publishes its data to this center, the UNS, and anyone or anything that needs that data just subscribes to it.
So if I add a new smart sensor, I don't have to rewire the pyramid. I just plug it into the town square.
Right. It makes the architecture incredibly flexible and scalable. This is the real meaning of ITOT integration, merging information technology with operational technology. But as you said, you need governance.
The rules of the town square.
Exactly. Who owns the data? Who's allowed to write to the UNS? If you don't have governance, you don't get a digital factory, you get a digital swamp.
Got it. So step 4 is validated pilots. This is where the pharma reality checks in. In Silicon Valley, they say, move fast and break things.
In pharma, if you break things, people die. Or at the very least, you lose your license. So you cannot use the standard tech startup approach.
So how do you pilot something?
You start small, but you build it right. The source suggests picking a high-impact area, maybe that OEE dashboard we talked about, but you design it with Validation 4.0 in mind.
Validation 4.0.
Traditionally, validation happens at the end. You build the car, then you test every bolt. Validation 4.0 integrates compliance into the design phase. You build the data integrity checks into the workflow, so by the time you run the pilot, it is already compliant. You prove it works, and you prove it's safe simultaneously.
That makes a lot of sense. So the pilot works, everyone's happy. Step 5 is scale and standardize.
This is the cookie cutter phase. You don't reinvent the wheel for every production line. You take that validated pilot, that OEE dashboard, and you roll it out using standard SOPs. This is how you get speed.
And finally, step 6, continuous improvement, which brings us right back to the maturity model. You reach level 3, you high five, and then you start looking at level 4.
Exactly. It's an infinite game.
I want to talk about the toolkit the Mastermind provides because it makes this all feel very actionable. They use this sports analogy. The playbook.
It's a great metaphor. In American football, you don't just tell the players, go score. You have a playbook with specific plays for specific situations. This program offers plays for digital transformation.
Give me an example of a play.
Well, the documents list things like the smart EBR play, the real-time OEE play, or the track and trace play. If you identify a problem in your assessment, you don't have to guess the solution. You open the playbook.
And backing those plays up are specific templates. I was looking at the assets provided. There are financial models and ROI calculators.
Those are crucial for the site head. The biggest hurdle is often getting the budget. These calculators help you translate technical improvements into CFO language.
How so?
Instead of saying, we need a unified namespace because it's cool, you say, if we implement this, we reduce deviations by 15%, which saves us 200 hours of labor and $500,000 in discarded material.
It turns the tech argument into a business case.
Which is the only way to survive in a boardroom.
There are also architecture blueprints, diagrams for how the manufacturing execution system, the MES, should talk to the lab information management system, the LIMS.
And risk checklists. Connecting a factory to the internet introduces cybersecurity risks. You need to ensure that while you're opening up the data, you aren't opening the door to hackers. The checklists align these cybersecurity controls with GMP good manufacturing practice.
So we have the vision, the roadmap, and the playbook. But let's go back to what you mentioned earlier, the human element. Documents are pretty blunt about this.
Yeah.
The biggest barrier isn't the technology.
No, it's almost always culture and skills.
Yeah.
You have staff who have been working with paper batch records for 20 years. They're comfortable. They know the process. Suddenly put an iPad in their hands or tell them an AI model is predicting a failure, and there's fear.
Fear of being replaced.
Fear of being replaced, yes. But also fear of the unknown. Fear of breaking something. If I press the wrong button on the screen, do I ruin a $1 million batch? The Mastermind program suggests a skills gap analysis as a first step.
How does that work?
You map your current roles operators, QA, IT, against the future needs. You might find that your operators are great at manual dexterity but need training in data literacy. Or your QA team knows the regulations inside out but needs AI fluency.
One of the curriculum modules mentioned prompt engineering for QA. That absolutely blew my mind.
It is the new reality. If you're using a large language model to query your quality data asking it, show me all deviations related to temperature in the last year, the QA officer needs to know how to construct that prompt accurately, and more importantly, how to verify that the AI isn't hallucinating the answer.
So a quality assurance job isn't just checking checkboxes anymore, it's auditing algorithms.
It's a massive shift in skill set, and the delivery methods for this training are interesting too. It's not just sitting in a classroom listening to a lecture.
No, the sources emphasize microlearning and AR/VR simulations.
Imagine putting on a VR headset to practice a sterile gowning procedure, or to learn how to operate a new digital interface on a virtual bioreactor. You can make mistakes in the virtual world, learn from them, and build muscle memory before you ever touch the real equipment.
It builds confidence without the risk. And it mentions soft skills too.
Yeah.
Which I always think is a funny term because they're usually the hardest skills to master.
And discrete. Critical thinking. Cross-functional collaboration. In a siloed plant, you just do your job. In a connected plant, you need to understand how your data affects the next person down the line. That requires a mindset shift.
Now, despite all this planning and training, things get messy. The sources have a whole section on overcoming barriers. And the big one, the elephant in the room, is legacy systems.
The brownfield reality. You walk into a plant and some of these machines might be 30 years old. They work perfectly fine mechanically, but they have zero digital capability. They don't have USB ports, they have serial cables, or nothing at all.
The temptation must be to just say, rip it out, buy the new smart version.
But that's often too expensive and disruptive. You can't shut down production for 6 months to replace a line. The Mastermind approach is more nuanced. It suggests phased retrofits using IoT wrappers.
IoT wrappers?
Basically, you attach external sensors, vibration, temperature, power consumption to the old machine. You bypass the machine's internal brain and just measure its physical outputs. You give the old dog a hearing aid and a microphone.
So you bring it into the town square, the unified namespace, without having to replace the machine itself.
Exactly. It's a very pragmatic, cost-effective way to get visibility on legacy equipment.
Another barrier mentioned is data integrity, the risk of multiple versions of the truth.
This is a classic problem. Operations has a spreadsheet that says production was up. Quality has a report that says yield was down. Supply chain is looking at a third system.
Chaos.
Yeah.
And in pharma, that's a compliance risk.
The FDA calls this LOCOA, plus attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate. If your data is scattered across 5 systems, you cannot guarantee LLCOA. The solution the documents point to is that the digital factory actually solves this by creating a single source of truth. Everyone looks at the same data in the UNS.
And speaking of the FDA, let's talk about regulatory uncertainty. There's this fear, right? If I use AI, the regulators will shut me down.
That is a very persistent myth. The regulators are actually pushing for this. They want better data. They want better visibility. The key, as the text explains, is to align with Pharma 4.0 guidance and involve your QA and regulatory affairs teams early.
So don't build a black box AI and try to explain it later.
Exactly. Build a transparent system that QA understands from day one. If you treat the regulator as a partner rather than an adversary, you find they are surprisingly supportive of technology that improves control.
I want to zoom out for a second. We've talked about the tech, the roadmap, the people.
Yeah.
But what is the big picture here? The why behind the what?
If we synthesize all these sources, the main takeaway is that Pharma 4.0 isn't just about buying software. It's a structural journey. It's moving from those digital islands where everything is disconnected and reactive to an ecosystem.
An adaptive ecosystem.
Yes, a place where data flows freely, where decisions are based on real-time facts, not yesterday's paper reports. And the Mastermind program positions this as a massive business opportunity.
Right. The business model section mentioned that this isn't just for individual plants. It offers an upsell path to corporate-wide roadmaps.
Because if you can crack the code for one site, if you can build that digital factory blueprint and prove the ROI, you can roll it out across your entire network. You can copy-paste the architecture and the governance. The value proposition is enormous.
And doing it in a fixed time frame. That 12 to 16-week sprint to design the roadmap seems key. It creates urgency.
It breaks the paralysis. Large pharma companies can spend years just talking about digital transformation. This forces them to put a stake in the ground, assess where they are, and pick a direction.
So we've gone from the messy reality of paper piles to the sleek vision of a self-optimizing factory. But I keep thinking about that final stage of the maturity model, adaptability.
It is the most futuristic part of the discussion.
If we actually reach that point where the factory is adjusting its own parameters, predicting its own failures, and optimizing in real time, what happens to the human?
That is the provocative question.
The source material talks about upskilling, about turning operators into orchestrators.
Yeah.
But that's a fundamental shift in identity, isn't it?
It is. For a century, the role of a factory worker was to be a doer. You turn the valve, you check the box, you move the product. In an adaptive plant, the machine does the doing. The human becomes the supervisor of the machine.
The orchestrator.
You're no longer driving the car, you're managing the fleet. You're looking for patterns the AI might miss. You're handling the edge cases, the ethical decisions, the anomalies. It requires a level of critical thinking and abstraction that we haven't traditionally asked for on the factory floor.
It sounds like we're moving from hands-on work to minds-on work. And the question is, are we ready for that cultural leap? We can buy the sensors, we can install the unified namespace, but can we rewrite the job description of manufacturing itself?
That is the challenge. The technology is exponential, but organizational change is logarithmic. It's slow. The Mastermind program provides the toolkit, but the heavy lifting of changing human mindsets, that is still up to the leaders.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. It's fascinating to see a blueprint that tries to tackle both the bits and bytes and the hearts and minds.
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach to a very complex problem.
For all our listeners out there, whether you're running a global supply chain or just fascinated by how your medicine gets made, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.